From iRacing's virtual Watkins Glen International Road Course, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round 22 of the 2024 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series. Well, the playoffs roll on for race number 2 of 3 in the round of 16. And as always, happy that you're strapped into the virtual seat and along for the ride with us at a RaceSpotTV Monday night. Alongside Derek Watson, my name is Evan Pasoko, as always. And Derek, tonight we come to a road course that doesn't leave us a ton of question marks. And that's not to undersell the importance of this race, but unlike what we saw a week ago in Atlanta, where anybody on the racetrack could have conceivably walked away with a win, tonight is very different. This is an extremely challenging track where most drivers have a pretty good idea if it's going to be a good night or a bad night for them.
Well, any driver who's been a long time NASCAR or eNASCAR or oval driver of the NASCAR especially has seen this track a few times. It's been on the NASCAR schedule for a long time. So most drivers, Evan, are pretty familiar with this track. But if we take a look at the schedule, it's not even the last road course on the schedule, I don't believe. We still have the Charlotte Roval in about 4 weeks' time. That'll be the last road course in RSR history. And I'll tell you, in my opinion, Evan, this is a way easier road course than the Charlotte Roval.
It is fun too. The Roval isn't new anymore, but the Glen is still far older in terms of back when you would get 1 or 2 road courses, right? Used to be just the Glen and Sonoma. That would be the 2 races on a Cup Series 36 race length season schedule. These were the 2 races that were much to the chagrin of the field, right? Back then, and even to a lesser extent still now, series like this that follow a NASCAR ladder and NASCAR format are oval racing primarily, and it is these road course races on the secondary. Now, there's so many of them, to your point, 1 here in the round of 16, the Roval in the round of 12, that the drivers who tend to be successful in modern day NASCAR racing and NASCAR sim racing, by a product of that, do tend to be a little bit better in both. But again, there's a handful of drivers who know they really needed to bank some points last week at Atlanta. They're going to try to do some damage limitation here in Watkins Glen, and then we'll get an idea of what chaos beholds us when we close out this round and send 4 drivers home in a week's time at Bristol. Here's a look at the standings after the opening race of the round of 16, at which your regular season champion Agno Phillip took home the win. He punches his ticket through to the round of 12. All your eyes drop to the red line. It is Gas, Freenosh, Danson, and Davis below the cut. No Danson, no Davis. Last time out, Maverick Davis is here in the field tonight, making his first start of the playoffs. He has a hole to dig out of.
Yeah, and remember, Andrew Freenosh had an unfortunate week last week, so he'll have a lot to dig out of as well. So, I think there's 2 strategies here tonight, Evan, if you're a playoff driver, which most of the field here tonight is. For some, it's go out and win. For some, it's survive and get what points you can and hope next week is, more your style of track. But we are about 1:35 left in qualifying, Evan, and there's already almost everybody's ready to put in their laps. There's 2 cars not putting in laps right now, but everyone here is done with Agno Phillip. Not surprisingly, by the way, Agno Phillip top of the board.
And Peter Irons, who's a top 5 car right now, calling Phillip and Harris bullies because they put in their fast laps after he put in his. So he was on the tentative pole position for a little bit of time in this extended 10-minute qualifying session. But I think there are no active cars on the racetrack, which means that the only 2 drivers who are looking to not put down in time in qualifying going to be Mike Maddox and Andrew Freenosh. Freenosh, I wouldn't be surprised if it was some sort of, strategy normally to start from the rear, but I think we could have a developing story in these playoffs, Derek. Andrew Freenosh had to disconnect from the session a little bit earlier, reconnected, disconnected again. I have not seen him reconnect, so I don't know if Andrew Freenosh is in the session. I don't think he is. You alluded to the problems that he had last week that had him below the cut line, so the 4-time champ could be in the danger zone if he does not get to start this race here at the Glen, and it could be all on the line for him next week.
Yeah, and this is, the virtual equivalent of what we call technical gremlins in real life racing, right? We see it more in road course racing where you see those gremlins pop up, but they pop up in iRacing, they pop up in virtual sim racing as well. But let's go ahead and take a look at the grid and see how this lines up, Evan.
Let's take a look at your RSR starting grid for the Watkins Glen 110. And as you mentioned, Agnew Phillip holds on. It is a pole position for the A51 Pro Exaltus driver, but he's already into the next round. He bests his teammate Cody Harris by 8/1000ths of a second. The 28 car will start alongside in second. Back on row number 2, third starting spot to the number 1 of Peter Irons. To his outside, fourth starter, the number 19 Chevrolet of Bradley Burke. Row number 3, inside, P5 starter, the number 44 Flat Sport Chevrolet of Michael Araya. Into the outside, in P6, the number 15 5150 Racing Machine. That's Maverick Davis in his playoff debut.
Moving back to P7, Rogue Wave Racing is represented by Cam Patterson with Ross Cato on the outside. P8 with Fast Forward. Austin Coop and Brandon Gass 9th and 10th. Gass just below that cut line. Needs to make up some spaces tonight. And then Thomas George, part of Steel Horse Racing, and Subpar Racing's Steve Soba round out your top 12.
Lucky number 13 tonight goes to the Flat Idea Sports number 2 Ford Mustang of Sam Nieto, and to the outside in 14th position, the number 10 Ironman Motorsports machine of Eric Papineau. Row number 8, 15th starter tonight, the number 82 Rogue Wave Racing machine of Nazi Major, and that is it for your qualifiers. Freenosh scheduled to roll off from 17th position if he is able to rejoin the session. He is not currently connected to the session. Mike Maddox, also based on provisional, the Extreme Performance Motorsports machine will roll from 17th. More news as the cars sit on the grid. We had just mentioned that Maverick Davis was going to make his first start of the playoffs, Derek, after missing the round of 16 opener at Atlanta. He has also disconnected from the session. He and Austin Coop have had those issues so far in this session. Coop has reconnected. Coop was able to make it to the grid. Maverick Davis is currently loading back into the session, so he will forfeit that P6 starting spot and likely start from pit road.
Now, the quasi quote-unquote good news for Maverick Davis is this race features a halfway caution at that halfway mark. So if he can hold on and not get lapped in the meantime, at halfway, he'll be able to join the grid and then, race it out till the end and see what happens. Let's take a look at our race details, our race summary, if you will, and see how we stack up for tonight. Look at this, 45 laps, of course, halfway bonus at lap 23. Fixed setups, 4 additional tire sets plus the 1 under car. And that pit window, Evan, it really doesn't matter 24 to 27 laps. With the halfway caution, I suspect, unless something goes wrong with your car, everyone's going to pit at the end of lap 23.
And drivers chatting about that halfway caution flying as well, so those bonus points will get paid to the top 10 drivers at the end of lap number 23, and then once those top 10 drivers cross the stripe at that point, the caution flag will also come out, and that should be the only caution flag, barring any external issues with the race server and the race session itself. That should be the only yellow. So some drivers, again, it's a big racetrack, could have the option to come down pit road, maybe forfeit the bonus points at the halfway point in this race, come down, get service, then go back out, leapfrog the field. But I think with a field of 17 cars, only 2 of which are non-playoff drivers, that the likely strategy, to your point, is everybody's going to pit after trying to cash in those points because the margins are oh so slim. Once again, an opportunity for somebody to advance into the playoffs. Round of 12 is on the line, but it's the man who's already locked in on pole. Let's go racing at the Glen. The first 2.45 miles of this race in the books. Philip leads from pole, and after a spirited battle for second up through the S's, Irons overtakes Harris. That one for second and third. Plenty of action going on. Top of the screen, that's the pink number 19. Burke around Lariah for P4. Bottom of your screen, the 17 of Patterson. He holds off Cato. That one a battle for P6. Brandon Gass has got a front row seat a bit as he heads down the back stretch to the inner loop.
Yeah, Gas about peeking to the side for a bit, got back in line, gets on the brakes way early as you have to in a cup car, and abuses these curbs. Evan, this might be the last season in iRacing, by the way, that you can abuse those curbs. And remember, in real life, Watkins Glen has put in those new curbs, or is putting in those new curbs, because they're not happy with people racing that way. They want them to more so, I guess, stay on the track. So that may be the last race for some of these drivers where they're able to do that.
Which is ironic because you come here to turn number 6 and they added 20 feet of pavement beyond the racetrack, and guess what? Drivers started using the 20 feet of pavement as the racing surface. You do not see that level of runoff and leeway at a place like Sonoma. You put 2 tires off the racetrack, you're in the grass. It's practically sand when NASCAR races there in the middle of the summer. You're off it in the dirt, you're out of control. Even here in turn number 1, you didn't used to have all that pavement beyond those curbs. But over time, NASCAR drivers kept pushing it, the Speedway expanded it, and really completely changed the racing line all the way around this 2.45 mile cup layout here at the Glen. Looking off of the back of Michael Lariah, rides exactly where he started to P5. Bad news for him is there's a second gap ahead of him, and everybody chomping at his heels. Austin Coop, Cam Patterson, Ross Cato, and more all want to take a crack at the Sim Speed Shop Chevrolet.
So now we come down through the carousel right here, and you want to get way out. Here's one of those other parts you talked about, the track. That didn't used to be there either, and now they've put a bunch of pavement. And listen, if you put pavement somewhere, a race car driver is going to try to make use of it, right? So here we come now through turns at 6 and 7. There's that pavement you talked about. Whoa, that was a loose car we saw from the back shot there. And now here's Ross Cato. Get some fancy, I guess, black and gray socks on, providing the foot cam here with those pedals. So thank you to Ross Cato for doing that. So we are turn 1, Evan, down to the 90. In some ways, the hardest corner to get checked up for because all the speed you carry. Nice job by Ross Cato. And here we go, up to the S's.
It's a good view of him working both pedals, and you can see the tech as well. The gears in the back is his pedals mounted upright as well. We always talk about the many different ways that drivers can set up their sim rigs. One of the popular conversations too is barefoot, socks, or shoes. Thankfully for us with the camera, he socks at least, but we see some drivers go for the race seat boots, and I've always been a sock person as well, but it's tricky because you can slide off the pedals. You don't have the grip like a racing shoe would, and that's why some drivers on the sim opt to take it that extra step further. He's working hard trying to get to Patterson up the road, who in P7 is the highest running non-playoff driver. Mike Maddox, also non-playoff car, some sort of an issue. That 30 car is off the racetrack. His night is done, so there are 15 cars on track, 14 of which playoff drivers highlighted in red. You can see the red on the scoring pylon left of your screen. You can also see the red splitter, windshield banner, spoilers, and more on the cars themselves. But we talked about this last week, Derek, when basically everybody in the field's a playoff car, it is so difficult to gain and kind of gap anybody.
Yeah, in a way, it sort of reminds me of that old adage, Evan. You know, you can't win the race in turn 1, but you can certainly lose it there. I feel the same way about this field right now. You can't win the playoffs in this race, but you can definitely put yourself in a massive, massive hole if you don't do well here, or if something happens, you get involved in a wreck or an incident here. You definitely put yourself in that position to really just be super, super behind the 8 ball, especially depending upon how maybe week 1 went for you at Atlanta. But here's Michael Lariah in that blue and red machine being chased down by Austin Coop, and Austin's doing a pretty good job and recovered that car pretty well. Remember, when we looked back from Lariah earlier, well, we saw Coop really just all out of sorts, and he recovered pretty well and is still in this battle. Oh, smoke up ahead.
A little bit of smoke is, that's turn number 7. But this is another one of those racetracks where every track map you look at, it's different. I think NASCAR counts it as 7. iRacing counts this layout as 8. I've seen some maps that say 13. So we'll try to stay consistent in the corner numbering, but it's another one where everybody has a bit of a different opinion. But Coop in that number 6 spot is up 3 spots. He is, in fact, the biggest mover in this field thus far. There's a quick peek at him on the bottom right of your screen. He seems pretty calm, cool, and collected at the moment. Not a lot of stress as they top out at about 160 or 70 miles an hour. And then they got to get through the inner loop here, the bus stop, where you get heavy under the brakes, drop about 100 miles an hour off your speed. And I'd say maybe this is the toughest corner. Turn 5, the outer loop, or the carousel, because you got to line it up, point and shoot. And they're all going to overrun the curb here to try to carry a lot of speed.
Yeah, every corner poses its own challenge. I mean, this corner right here, you want to get walled up just a little bit. You want to track it out. You don't want to lose too much speed. This is a momentum-based corner. Get yourself ready for what we're going to call turn 7. You're right, there's so many variants of this track, and I think most of the variants, Evan, depend upon how many corners, or if you count the bus stop as a corner at all. That seems to be where people differ in their opinions of how many corners there are here at the Glen. So this is obviously turn 1, otherwise known as the 90. And we come here up through the S's, and this is sort of the part we all agree on. And then from here, it all goes bananas.
Yeah, my map, right-hander turn 2, left-hander 3, right-hander 4. So a 3-turn complex up through the S's. But then it's funny because the NASCAR map that I'm referencing gives no corner numbers to this entire complex. This should be at least 1 and 2 in and out. You could argue it would be 4 corners. The NASCAR map counts it as none, and then we'll call this outer loop here turn number 5.
Yeah, and to me, that was almost like 2 corners. That's like an oval corner right there. Like, whatever. But then you come down here, and these are obviously corners right here, the final 2 corners, what we're going to call 6 and 7. There's the left-hander and the right-hander. It's something important to note here for a road course on the NASCAR schedule, Evan, how fast this course is, by the way. Think about that. It wasn't long ago. We just mentioned 6 and 7, and here we are again. A lot of the NASCAR road courses are, maybe Coda or Sonoma or even the Roval. I mean, that's still a little of a longer lap. We've done the Daytona road course in the past. This is a quick road course. There's really only, 2 quote-unquote straightaways. There's no time to stop and think. There's no time to catch your breath or to, do anything other than focus on the course.
And that's why even with the Daytona roads and the Codas and the aforementioned Roval especially, because that race always seems to be a thriller in real life. But despite all of that, I still have that kind of nostalgic spot for the Glen and for Sonoma on just the technicality and the speed of these racetracks. The other thing is the elevation change. It's all built into the landscape. Of course, going up the S's, down the hill to turn number 1. You don't see that at a place like the Roval. You don't see that when NASCAR ran the Daytona road course. And to a lesser extent, you get it at Coda, but a lot of that was manufactured. This racetrack really built into the ebbs and the flows of the scenery here in the Finger Lakes region of Watkins, Glen, New York. Again, this race will not be long, minus the fact that we will hold up for the caution past midway. But aside from that 45-lap race, lap time is going to be averaging in the 111, 112s for some of the faster cars. I mean, this race isn't going to go much more than 60 minutes total, I think, start to finish.
Yeah, I was thinking by far it has to be the fastest RSR race all year. I mean, even if you took something like an Atlanta or a Dover or a Kansas, and if we go green all the way, it's still not going to be this fast. So this is a very fast race, and things will happen to you very fast if you make a mistake here. And I love how Austin Coop is doing the right thing here. He's not making contact. He's not bumping. I think you and I have both seen that in different competitions, maybe eNASCAR. Otherwise, we've seen people make the bump in the outer loop or the carousel, whatever you want to call it. But Austin Coop is definitely making his presence known all over the back end of Michael Araya. We had an eNASCAR race in a couple years ago with the bump, didn't we?
Yeah, we've seen, you talk about comparing to other series and some people getting physical, and we've had some thrillers, some bump and runs over the years. And it's funny enough, people will say for road courses, Watkins Glen races like a short track. especially that 6 and 7 complex, hard braking zones. You really have to be aggressive sometimes to complete the passes just because the corners here are in such rapid succession. You don't really have a lot of opportunities to set up a typical passing opportunity. Turn 1, certainly a chance, right? Heavy braking zone. You can get a little bit of that as well off into turn number 6, but if you're trying anything on the backstretch here, sometimes you need a bit of bumper, and we'll see if Austin Coop's at that point. Remember, he's the biggest mover so far at up 3 spots, but he's got Cam Patterson breathing down his neck, so he may be incentivized to be a little bit more forthcoming here, trying to pass the 44.
Yeah, definitely incentivized as well. I know you'll remember it better than I will. I remember the last bump and run I saw at the Glen was I think Grant Boland got moved out of the way, if I remember right, a couple years ago in the eNASCAR race, but yeah, just incredible to see. And of course, that's a big debate, I think, amongst road course drivers and oval drivers about if that is or isn't acceptable. But you mentioned it right here, turn number 1, aka the 90. This is maybe your best passing opportunity if you can gain more speed or carry more speed through this corner. Up to the S's, if you pass here, in my opinion, Evan, you're a maniac. This is the worst place to get past or to try to pass someone. It's just not meant for passing.
And you're uphill too, so momentum is not working in your favor. So you would have to, I think, need a mistake out of somebody into 1 to set up for anything going up those S's. Otherwise, I'm with you. That's a diabolical move. When we were getting to the S's, I saw some smoke from the back. We saw Cato go real wide in kind of his Miami Vice colored car. He did miss turn number 1. It's a prime example, and Brandon Gass passed him. That's kind of the only opportunity I think you'd get to pass somebody up through the S's. Here's one of those more stereotypical passing opportunities, right? Long-ish straightaway down to turn number 6, heavy braking zone. But again, compared to some other straights, like a Coda, like a Daytona, like the Indy Road Course even, that is hardly one. So this run down the front stretch is really your only one good look. But then when you dip off here, you get to the end of pit road and you got a pretty steep grade down into the corner. That scares a lot of people away from throwing it into the inside because oftentimes both cars will end up in the fence.
Yeah, I almost feel like the better passing opportunity is to do it on the outside, to just let yourself run wide out of turn 1, use that extra pavement up there to get a big run and see if you can end up side by side. Ooh, side, as I saw Austin Coop get up on the curbing there through the S's, and you saw him get way wide. That's a great job by Austin Coop to avoid the wall and other things in this track. And I think the reason, to come back to your point about why passing is so hard here and why this is no longer at the same point an F1 track, Evan, is there's no extra space here for the most part. Yeah, there isn't one, and there is, right here, but like there's walls right there. And this is a road course where if you make a mistake, it's more likely than not that you're going to meet a wall.
We've seen some big-time wrecks here through the years in NASCAR history, and you're right, I don't think the racetrack in its current configuration would meet modern-day FIA safety standards because you just don't have the space around the track, right? I talk about, oh, these runoffs, they're big, they're paved. They certainly are, but only in turn 1. Down by the outside of the outer loop, down in turn 6 and 7. Other than that, you're right up against that blue Armco. I mean, look how tight it is here through the S's, where NASCAR's had some mammoth wrecks right here when that wall is no more than maybe a half a foot off the white line on either side. So again, a lot of people will consider this Glen racetrack as the short track of the road courses. Fun battle going on up front. Agnew Phillip has led all 12 laps thus far tonight, and there is still things for him to fight for. Yes, he won last week. Yes, that means he's locked into the round of 12, but he started this round, Derek, with such a huge boost in points. 50 ahead of everybody else to start because he got 5 points each for every 10 race wins that he had in the regular season. Well, he does not carry that hefty sum through every round, unlike playout points in the NASCAR Cup Series. So Agnew Phillips into the round of 12. That's great. He has 5 bonus points for winning Atlanta. So why doesn't he just roll over? Well, every single win he gets for the rest of the round will also give him 5 additional bonus points. So that's why, despite the fact that he's already locked in, he is not going to roll over for Peter Irons, who could really use the W.
Well, and the other reason not to roll over as well as all the mental stuff it does for you, right? It gives you momentum going into, next race or next round. It gives you confidence. you know, it's important for a driver to always do their best. It's hard to ask a driver to, you know, quote unquote roll over. I mean, some people would say, hey, listen, you know, Cody Harris and Agnell Phillip are teammates. Why doesn't Agnell try to, you know, lock Cody in? And, you know, I know that in other series and other types of racing, you know, namely F1, there's that idea of team orders that exists. But as NASCAR nerds, Evan, we're not used to that. That doesn't exist. That's not things we understand. So, you know, yeah, maybe you'll help a teammate out. Maybe Agnell will do something like let Cody lead a lap, maybe. But, you know, no one's going to roll over for a teammate here. But, oh, hold on. Here's Peter Irons in turn one. There's that passing, and there's the bump, Evan.
Door contact for the race lead, and Peter Irons is through. He made the dive into one. Frinosh gave him just enough space, and the one car pushed his way through. And now Peter Irons will go to the race lead for the first time tonight. And now we'll get a real good look at pace of the one car. He stayed behind Agnell. At one point, maybe 5 laps into the race, the gap was nearly 5, 6, 7 tenths of a second, but it never really ballooned. Can the one car pull away up in the top spot, or is this 94 going to keep him honest? And don't forget about Cody Harris at Red Chevy in third right there watching on as well.
Well, Agnell Phillip wants that spot back. Look at the way he's racing the course, way wide through all the runoffs, trying to find every ounce of track he can find to make a move happen here. But what these two drivers did in a way by bumping through one and slowing their speeds, you're right, the gap between first and second closed, but that gap now from Cody Harris is way closer than what it was a minute ago when we went by here last time. So now Cody Harris probably feels like he has a shot here at being involved in this battle. So we are starting lap 16. Remember, folks, we do have the caution at the conclusion of lap 23, which I've been told will be when the 10th place car crosses the line. So it's sort of NASCAR, oh, I lost my word, stage style. I don't know why I lost that word. I hear it every week. But wow, Peter Irons is pulling away here, Evan. So I think now we're seeing what the power and the benefit and the advantages that clean air gives you, because Peter Irons is pulling away from Agnell Phillip.
He is pulling away slowly but surely, and as we go on board with Cody Harris, now he has to push a little bit, right? He kept very well in pace with Harris, and Harris kept in pace, I should say, with Irons and Phillip as they ran 1, 2, 3. If that one car starts to scoot away, the 28 machine, if he feels like he's better than Agnell Phillip, is going to want to make that pass happen sooner rather than later. Otherwise, he could be kind of stuck there in third as the one reaps the benefits. Last lap time for Peter Irons, a 1:11.974. It was a 9:31 as there goes the 94 car. Phillip gave it way too much sauce into turn one, and he will just like that give P2 to Harris.
I don't know if he got in way too deep or if maybe Peter Irons broke early, but something happened where Agnell was concerned about contact and caused that to happen. Wow, look at this little gaggle right here. Austin Coop now around Michael Laraya, and then Cam Patterson behind them. As this is all happening right here live. That's Brandon Gatz in the back of that shot. So all these drivers right here in a small pack together trying to make something happen. Patterson's now over the back end of Laraya after Laraya gave up that spot to Austin Coop.
So battling going on all throughout the field. Again, Coop able to make that pass on Laraya, puts him to +4. Still the biggest charger on the night. Laraya down that one spot, trying to not make it any worse. But at 17, Bashida Cam Patterson going to be awfully aggressive. Patterson also has to walk a bit of an interesting line, right? As the only non-playoff car still in this race, he has less to lose when you look at the point situation. But at the end of the day, if Cam Patterson didn't want to race, didn't want to compete, he could just as easily not show up like some of the other drivers who have been eliminated. So the fact that Cam Patterson's here tells me that he enjoys this, he enjoys the competition, and he wants to be a competitive car. So he may be a little bit more careful with the 44. I don't think you're going to see him door slam a playoff car like Irons door slammed Phillip to go to the race lead. But that 17's not just going to get out of the way. He's here to compete just like everybody else.
Yeah, he definitely is, and doing it pretty well, you know, being very clean about it, as you said, and, you know, racing as hard as he can in this moment. So once again, Lariah here, and look at how hard they're using that curb. I mean, his cars get airborne through these corners, and to think that's probably of the cars we race here in iRacing at the Glen, whether it be the NASCAR stock cars, the next gen cars, or IMSA or MX5s, that's probably the most gentle you are in that curb. Man, you take an LMP2 around here, and you almost have to be up on the curb and get airborne lap by lap to do it well. So it is quite the scary ride around here. It is not as simple as it looks. These guys are making it look easy. Let me tell you, as an oval guy who doesn't really do much road courses, this is way harder than it looks.
There are some elements as well of this new next-gen car that does effectively make these cars built for this a little bit more than they were in the past. And I think that certainly has benefited the drivers who do road racing outside of NASCAR series or just enjoy it more, because those Gen 6 cars were absolutely terrible to drive, and that was kind of some of the excitement, is you'd get on the curbs and they'd be bouncing and the right front would be lifted off of the ground. You still see a lot of that, but again, this car designed with this style of racing much more in mind. And again, it doesn't mean you're not going to see these cars get shook around. You see them bouncing all the way through the inner loop of the bus stop there, but it is a touch on the more controlled side compared to what it was a few years back. Patterson looking to the inside on the bottom of Lariah. They're going to head off to turn number 6. Lariah sees that he's lost the spot. Patterson is through. Spot gained for the 17.
Yeah, you're right, Evan. I would have used the word menace to describe the old Gen 6 cars at this road course. They were an absolute menace to drive. I mean, not just from the handling, but listen, some of those cars, if you got on the accelerator too hard, you loop that car around just with all the horsepower and whatnot. Oh my gosh, Brandon Gass, I thought for a second was going to just clobber Lariah, but here he is making the pass. He got a better run up through the S's, and here they are side by side, but Lariah says, nope, I know that's a bad idea. I'll back out. And Lariah, it really is maybe, if not the biggest loser of this race, one of the biggest losers position-wise as this race goes on. But Evan's right. These cars are built with road course racing in mind, but still, you know, I mentioned racing different cars around this road course, MX-5s, LMP2s, you know, GT3s, whatever. In my opinion, this is still one of the hardest cars to put around a road course. It is difficult. It is like driving a bathtub full of water around a track. That's what it feels like, with how much the weight moves, how shaky it is, how hard it is to brake. And that's maybe the hardest part of this. And so I actually think a lot of oval drivers dislike road courses so much because of how hard it is to put a stock car around a road course. If most drivers started with a DT3 or a prototype around a road course, oh man, Bradley Burke lit him up there. They would enjoy road course racing more than they do from these stock cars. These stock cars are incredibly hard to get around this course. There's a lot of road course drivers who are petrified to put a NASCAR next-gen car around a road course.
And I'm, you know, being a oval person, and for the limited time that I spend driving on the service as well, again, preference is the oval stuff, but there are some road cars that I will not want to touch on a road circuit either. Look at the 53 of Coop now to the bumper. He is continuing his charge through the field. Next victim may be that 19 of Bradley Burke for 4th. This time by the stripe, they will take the start of lap number 22. It'll be 2 laps to go until bonus points are paid out and the caution comes out. So some sense of urgency for Coop to get the pass done.
So now what I want to watch for, Evan, is the ticker on the left side of the screen. I want to see if anyone tries any trickery here. Does somebody want to come down pit road right now, probably not lose the lap, get the pit stop done, and not have to pit under the yellow? Maybe, you know, swap from the back of the field to the front of the field and make a move. Listen, if you're a playoff driver, with all due respect, maybe you're a Brandon Gass who's below the cut line, or you're someone pretty far down that list, this could be a great way for you to maybe change your fate, or at least put yourself in a better position to change your fate spot-wise. So that would be interesting to see what happens if anyone decides to take that on here in this moment. But right now, a beautiful battle with Bradley Burke and Austin Coop. We saw Coop use the bumper once. Now I think he'll do it again if he feels he needs to.
Well, I almost started yelling over you because I was convinced that Austin Coop was about to bonsai that 19 in the bus stop. He got in way harder and was maybe a half a foot off the left rear quarter panel. I thought for sure they were going to be taking each other out. Again, that's not even the only battle on track. There's a three-way battle behind them, and there is some pit stop action. Agnell Phillip will come down pit road. He is going to forego taking the lion's share of the bonus points, and he will come down pit road for service. He may be the only leader to do it. Here's the three-way battle I mentioned behind. The 17 of Patterson getting past. That's Brandon Gass to the inside.
Gass doing a great job there. Really got to the inside of Patterson. And man, you talked about being nervous about a bonsai move. That was my scary moment right there, because I thought for sure there was contact there through one. Look at them, three-car battle now down to the bus stop. It's too wide in the bus stop. This is not a good idea.
And are they going to run out of time? Because the leader's about to cross the start-finish line. Irons and Moore, they're going to come down pit road up front as the lap expires. Once the one car comes to the end of lap number 23, the caution will come out. Will they still be scored in first and second, or does somebody on the racetrack end up getting that spot? Looks like they all want to take this pit stop right on the money at the halfway point, and it is going to mean that it is a mess of positions as we wait for the 10th placed car to cross the stripe.
Yeah, big mess, and everyone did the strategy, so now maybe it's not as helpful of a strategy. See Agnell Phillip coming back around after his pit stop, coming down this front straight here. There it is. There is the yellow. You see Barney the flagman waving in the back of that camera shot. So now we'll check up for the pace car. Whoa, Agnell Phillip. Wow, man. Like the caution surprised him or something.
A caution comes out, so he will end up with a single bonus point. He was 10th, the 10th placed car to complete lap number 23. That's when the yellow flag comes out. Unlike what you'll see in the NASCAR Cup Series, where they will close pit road 3 or 2 laps ahead of the break, it's fair game. So that was a smart decision for Irons and Harris to come down and actually kind of back up when that yellow would come out, because they were so far ahead. They get the service, and because they had built such a gap on a majority of the field, they will not likely lose as much track position as Agnell Phillip does.
There's your pace car coming out. A little indecisive and squirty there, but he'll come out now and catch the leader. Now, this will be a long pace car process, Evan. This will be, we talked about the race being fast. These pace laps will not. This will be a very long, slow, treacherous process here, as Bradley Burke now has caught the pace car. And for those who did not pit, if there are that many left, the pit road will open as they come back around. But let me tell you, the hardest part about pacing in iRacing on a road course is catching the pace car. This pace car does not care where you are, how far behind you are, any of those matters. It is a challenge if you're behind in the field to catch up to the pace car in time.
So one storyline that we haven't touched on since the get-go, but we did mention Andrew Friedosh missed the grid in this race. He did eventually connect to the session. You see him scored in 16th spot. He is 5 laps down. I believe the sim will give him a lap back the way that they sit right now, and that would get him to 4 laps down. But there is no opportunity for Friedosh to get enough caution flags to actually get all the way back into contention. He would need some other playoff cars to have accidents, to have issues, if they are to be able to, or if he's going to be able, I should say, to make up some points. It looks like he's going to have a tough time as we head to Bristol. To your point, Derek, about cars pitting, Burke, Coop, Patterson, Lariah, Cato, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 will all need to come down this time in pit. So will Nieto, George, and Papineau in 9th, 10th, and 11th. So surprisingly, a split strategy in the end here.
Yeah, very surprising. But I'm going to follow up on something you said. I believe actually Manatsi Major was a lap down when the yellow came out. So I'm pretty sure Manatsi Major is getting the lucky dog based on the path he's taken around the course. But we can follow up on that. But you're right, very split here. And so ultimately this sort of, I guess, resets everything back to normal in a weird way. Because now, you know, the people up front are going to be back up front. Agno Phillip, Cody Harris, you know, Peter Irons, all up front where they were. Right now, Brandon Gass, your biggest mover in P4. That's, I'm not going to say the word surprising, but it's very important for Brandon Gass to be up there. Maybe it's a better word.
Yeah, we were talking a lot about the fact that we saw Austin Coop driving through the field, and to your point, Gass had matched him at about 4 spots gained up until the moment when the caution flag had to come out, and now it'll kind of balance back out a little bit. But yeah, equally as impressive for Brandon Gass to be able to get in some points here and get himself up and into the payouts. As you see down pit road, Burke first car in and out, everybody going 4 tires into fuel. The cars who pitted either before or during the yellow flag will find themselves at a 2-lap difference, 2-lap disadvantage. But I think a lap and 3/4 of that, Derek's going to be under the yellow, so I don't think it's going to be much of a material disadvantage.
No, I don't think it'll be really relevant at all at the end of the day about, you know, if you pitted before or during the yellow here. So don't think that'll come up. I think currently right now, the drivers said they're being shown 2 to green. We see the lights in the pace car are still on. So we'll wait and see if they turn those off here at that moment.
We said last week that we'd be going into the vault every week throughout these RSR playoffs, and let's do it again and take a look at some RSR history right here at iRacing's virtual Watkins Glen. This week we're throwing it back to the 2019 Watkins Glen race. Connor Horn and Andrew Freenosh, they had both led 27 laps up until this point in the race when their 2 strategies collided and they were battling for the race win. Connor Horn trying to upset Andrew Freenosh in the middle of his dynasty dominance, runs out of fuel, had to coast to the finish. He would eventually come home in 3rd. Between them, Dylan Jones stole the 2nd, but that was one of the many race wins that Andrew Freenosh has found here in the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series. That blast from the past coming from 2019.
And by the way, we talked in the beginning of the race about how different the track is. If you watch that video closely, you saw a lot more grass on this track than you see today. You saw, especially there out of the carousel, you saw nothing but full grass up there. So differences can be seen even in that video about how this track has evolved. More 1 to go. The cars are double file. Now, in a way, Evan, what I think we just had a bit was a bit of a science experiment, right? You know, live science experiment. How did your car behave? You know, what do I need to know? Where can I push a corner? Where do I need to back off? But now it's time. We're ready to go. Now it's go time, to use that super speedway term. Because it's just, you know, this last few laps to the end here, we're probably going to go green at the beginning of lap 28 with Cody Harris leading the field.
And what we learned was there's a lot of cars that seem to be pretty evenly matched. Of course, Phillip led the opening 14, Irons led 11, Burke led 1 in all of that, but Cody Harris was kind of the 3rd man in that party. He's going to end up in a good spot here, restarting in 2nd. Those 3, I think, are pretty even on speed. And Irons' decision to actually pit at the halfway point as opposed to Agno Phillip, who went for the undercut, finds himself at a disadvantage. He'll have to chase down Irons as opposed to the opposite. And then that battle in the midfield, right? Gass ends up 6 spots. Coop lost a couple spots through that cycle. He's back down to 7th. He's going to have some work to do. That battle from 4th on to back also going to be really intriguing.
Yeah, lots of battles, because as you said, I mean, everyone, you know, really, I think to the top 8 showed a lot of similar pace in this first run we had. So be interesting to see who maybe takes advantage of clean air and who gets, you know, a better run. Who's more desperate to get a good run down through turn 1? That's always the scariest part of a restart here at the Glen, in my opinion, Evan, is turn 1. As a driver, you're petrified of what could happen at the bottom of that hill.
We'll find out with 18 laps left to go on the board, this time by who stands the test of time at the Glen. Irons on the inside of the front row. He's the control car. Ross Cato launches on from row 5. Green flag back in the air.
So far, turn 1 looks okay. Everyone's 2x2. And lots of scattering here. Oh, we got a car way inside the wall in the back of the field here who just lost it in turn 1. But everyone so far, for the most part, up to the S's, still side by side. That is super scary. But everyone's going to come out clean and be ready to race down this back straight.
It was a big bobble for Magno Phillip halfway through the S's. That's going to allow Irons to gap him a little bit, but it was still an impressive start. Phillip flirted with 3 wide, went to the bottom past Harris. Harris had a terrible restart, dropping down to what is the number 4 spot. Gets passed by 2 cars on that cycle, as now he'll take that 3rd spot back from Maverick Davis. 15 had him for a moment as they went into the outer loop there, but now we end up basically in the exact order in which they were running. And look at all of the wheel input for Harris. That car is evil right now. He can only really chuckle about it, but it's going to cost him some time. And Davis now back on the bumper again.
And boy, if you want to know how hard it is to road course race in one of these cars, look at Cody Harris. Look at his face. Typically, Cody has a little bit more fun. You see a smile there. Oh, is there got smoke ahead? And he just made up a lot of time on Peter Irons. And oh, they're going to try and make the pass there. But you can see Cody's a bit more, I don't say serious this week, Evan, but maybe a bit more intense, a bit more focused. He is maybe not quite as jovial as he is at some of the ovals.
It is serious work, and that smoke was off of the 1 car of Peter Irons. He was your leader. Botch, turn number 1, slid it. Oh, there goes Cody Harris. Spinner, huge pile up with several cars. Austin Coop, Brandon Gass, Cody Harris, all involved on the exit of the bus stop. That is going to be a huge points hit for several cars, many of which we had been talking about how good their night had been.
Well, it's a big points hit for especially Brandon Gass, who's already below the red line coming into this race. So that's not good news for him. But it looks like most people have driven away from the wreck in some form. So we'll see who does or doesn't need to come down pit road here and fix some repairs. But there's a lot of drivers who made it through there and benefited. Minazzi Major just kind of somehow got right through the middle of it.
Down pit road for repairs comes Cam Patterson. Of course, he was the non-playoff car involved in that, but we were talking about both Gas, to your point, below the cut line, and Austin Coop as 2 of the cars who had been the biggest movers in this race. And it all started, again, Irons was a little bit sideways, but Cody Harris just did not have that car under control at all off of the restart. And it is Harris who had a chance to win this race, and it was Coop and Gas who were the biggest movers in this race as the 3 playoff drivers involved in that accident. We pick up the live action with Maverick Davis in P5 trying to hold off Bradley Burke, but I want to get a point in about what that does. Yes, Cody Harris is a good car. Yes, it's going to hurt those drivers, but who does that benefit, right? Everybody else moves up 4 spots instantly. That could be huge for a Minazzi Major or a Steve Soa to get themselves into a spot to get out of this round of 16 with the points they just gained there if they have the pace to hold those cars off. Again, there was enough damage to force Patterson to pit road. We will see what the damage is on Harris and on Coop. They may still be able to get some spots back.
They might, yeah. We'll see how slow or off pace those cars may or may not be. Another name to talk about is Maverick Davis, by the way. He came in tonight, I think either like bottom or next to bottom on the points graphic below the line. And now he's going to benefit from that wreck. He's going to benefit from a couple drivers who were near him in points having that damage. So now he's up at P5. That's got to cause him to breathe a little easier, knowing that he should have a bit, you know, of a gain on some of those drivers. Right now, he's holding up Bradley Burke, who, by the way, Bradley Burke in the opening lap of the restart, I believe had a slow down off-track penalty because he was darn slow off on the back straight there, and really almost a little scary with how slow he was before getting back up to speed.
Still watching this dynamic duo here. The 19 kind of half-heartedly flashed a nose to the inside on Davis. Wasn't close enough to make the move. Now he'll try to dive to the inside in turn 7. Davis, cool under pressure, continues to defend this, the ongoing battle for P5 and 6. And with 14 laps to go in this race, is Agnew Phillips simply going to walk away with this one? It seemed like Peter Irons had figured out the strategy, as you see Cody Harris driving back through the field, passing Steve Soa. That was for position number 10. But for Irons, it seemed like it was all going correct, and then it all started to fall apart. Had a big mistake, threw away the race lead, was nearly caught up in that accident. I wonder if he has enough to get back to Agnew Phillips in the battle for the race lead.
Yeah, that'll be something to track and to see how it plays out here. But here's Bradley Burke and Maverick Davis. This is going to be your battle right now for 5th and 6th place. And these guys are all over one another here as they now come out of the carousel. Man, look how wide Maverick Davis got. And still had a hold of that car. Well, Evan, I think it's almost obligatory. We talk about in a broadcast at the Glen, the debate about, whoa, hold on, let's come back to that, because there, Bradley Burke just got the side of Maverick Davis, and they both saved it.
Yeah, Burke apologized on the radio, but he kind of flirted with that same move last lap into turn 7. The 19 threw it in there, and I'm sure Maverick could have given him a little bit more room, but I think that 19 wasn't going to make the corner. Let's take a look from high and above. It's going to happen right here to the bottom. I just feel like that car's going to push up anyways. They both did a good job of saving it. Burke recovered quicker, and now Maverick Davis has to go back on the offensive as he drops all the way down to P7 and now makes a pass on Andrew Freenosh for the 88 car, who was a lap driver in between he and the 6 of Thomas George, who he wants to get back up to. So drama filled in this race since the halfway point.
Yeah, a lot of drama, a lot more contact in this half of the race than the first half, and I think that's just due to, drivers now realizing that, there's no more breaks. You have to go and make up your spots. But I agree with you. I don't think Bradley Burke was ever going to stick that car in that spot without making contact on Maverick Davis, unless he just assumed Maverick Davis was going to ride up out of that corner and not protect the line that he should. So that's kind of a sketchy move, honestly, to be from my standpoint. But I was going to talk about the debates, Evan, about the Glen, which is, should NASCAR use the boot? NASCAR is one of the few racing series left at the Glen that does not use the boot. Of course, the boot you get access to by coming out of the carousel and kind of staying to the left and going through a different part of the track. Of course, that track is a little more tricky. It's a little bit more, I think, technical. Lots more elevation changes to it. But there's really been a big debate for a long time in the NASCAR community about if we should use it or not use it. And right now, we're not.
We've seen similar types of experiments happen. We've mentioned this racetrack hand in hand with Sonoma a lot. NASCAR went to run the extended layout of that racetrack and then kind of quickly jumped back to the NASCAR layout. And that NASCAR layout here at the Glen is what we continue to run, foregoing that boot. I'll be on the standpoint that I think these stock cars race better here. And look at the action. Are we going to go 3 wide? To the very inside is Coop. Soa guessed wrong, went to the outside, got stuck behind Benazzi Major, and Coop and Gas passed both of them. So I mentioned that the accident in the bus stop could have been big for a Benazzi Major, for a Steve Soa, because of the spots gained. Well, Cody Harris, Austin Coop, and Brandon Gass have passed those drivers back. So anything they would have gained, null and voided.
Yeah, I would agree with that to a certain extent here. And see Austin Coop on board here, looking back. See the cars behind us. Brandon Gass right behind him. And I think this just goes to show something you said earlier in the opening of the broadcast about how some drivers are just more comfortable here at a road course, whether it's this road course or any road course. And I think sometimes, that idea right there comes to play. Here you have Gas, you have Coop, you have Cody Harris involved in a wreck only a few laps ago, And here they are passing people already, you know, with a pretty sizable difference of that pass. I mean, it's not, you know, they're not bumping, they're not cheesing a lap, they're just faster a lap than these cars are passing. And so it really shows you that, you know, the road course specialty thing is something that is really still relevant in the NASCAR oval community on iRacing.
And maybe the first time since we had the midway yellow that we can kind of assess the situation and hit the reset button. One of the changes through all of that chaos, of course, this battle up front, we talk about it. The fact that Peter Irons had the lead, threw it away, now has taken it back from Agnell Phillip. Peter Irons with a race win would lock himself in to the round of 12. We take a look, lap traffic on the exit of the S's. Phillip went wide, nearly running over that number 19 machine, and that is how maybe the West was won, or the East was won in this case, here in the Empire State, as Irons gets by Phillip. Now, they had been sitting at about 4/10 back from each other. I'm curious if Agnell's done, right? We were kind of asking ourselves these same questions at the halfway point. Is Irons going to run away, or is Agnell Phillip going to challenge again? Just keep a half eye on those intervals on the leaderboard left of your screen as we head inside of 10 to go.
Yeah, who knows what Agnell Phillip may be planning. You know, experience so far shows us, though, Evan, that for the most part, clean air is king at a road course. So, you know, it's hard to think that without lap traffic getting in the way, or without a slip up by Irons, that Phillip will, you know, be involved again as far as that battle right there. And there's Cody Harris, by the way, getting around a car, but that's Andrew Freenosh he just got around, so that is not for position. But Freenosh now right in the middle, in the middle of this battle. That's what I was trying to say right here, and this is for P6.
This is the heavily condensed part of the racetrack where it seems like everybody's got something to gain or lose here or there. Again, you see Andrew Freenosh in this battle. Remember that 88 is not for position after he had some sort of an issue connecting or reconnecting to the server that cost him to miss the start of the race. He did go from 5 laps down to 4 laps down. Why is that notable? Well, Cam Patterson pulling off the racetrack has gained Freenosh a single spot. And Eric Papadow driving around slow and damaged may give Freenosh a second one. It is still going to put the 4-times champion in a very tough spot as he tries to close his RSR career this year with maybe a little bit more of Freenosh magic. But it has been shocking how the first 2 races of this round of 16 have gone for the 88 car.
Yeah, and in a playoff format like this where every point matters, it does matter to come back and race because, you know, who knows what a point or 2 may do for him when we're all said and done into next week. Maybe that 1 point or 2 points is the difference of where a cut line sits. So we'll wait and see how that plays out here. Right now we're working lap 38 of 45, as Evan said, maybe our fastest race of the year. This thing is quickly going by. And what's also happening quickly is that gain up top. Peter Irons now 3/4 of a second over Agnell Phillip.
It is growing a little bit by little bit up front. It seems like Peter Irons may be en route to getting his first race win since Richmond. I know that was not that long ago, but remember, that was when Peter Irons went on a string of winning 3 races over a 4-week span and hasn't won in the 4 weeks since. Again, I wish my biggest problem was a 4-week winless drought, but Peter Irons would love to have a statement race win here tonight, and it would be big for him to stand alone alongside Agnell Phillip as the only 2 drivers locked into the round of 12, because once this one car burst onto the scene, I think a lot of the chatter started to turn towards, is it going to be at Agnell Phillip and Peter Irons battle for the title? Who is that 3rd car? Who is that 4th car? Is it a Lariah? Is it a Burke? Is it a Cody Harris? That is still to be decided, but everybody seems pretty unanimous that they expect the 1 and the 94 to be there in Phoenix when this championship's on the line in a couple of months' time. This battle right here for 8th on the racetrack. Both these cars have had good nights. They've stayed clean. They've picked up spots. Who gets the last laugh as Thomas George is chasing down Sam Nieto?
Well, it's a different look for Nieto this week. I just realized that black and red machine, a little different than what we're used to seeing out of Sam. So a different paint scheme for this week for the Glen. A little bit more of a like a retro throwback style to me.
With the white.
Yeah. So nice job there by Sam to have a different paint scheme. But I like what you said about the points about Peter Irons. There was a point, as you said, when I kind of joked we'd entered the Iron Age of RSR because of how dominant he had been. And I mentioned momentum earlier, and I think that's important in RSR because it does feel like we go through these. I don't want to use the word phases. I dare use the word eras because of the whole Taylor Swift thing, but we go through these moments of RSR where it feels like one driver, when they catch that momentum, they ride it for a few weeks at a time, and then we kind of swap who wins, in that moment, or who dominates. And so I think really at this point in the season, you want to find that momentum and do what you can with it.
And there is no better time to get hot than in the postseason. So if you had to peak at any time, now would certainly be the time to do it and turn the wick back up. Again, Agnell Phillip has been strong. He has won basically every other week since mid-June. And again, would love to get a race win here tonight. It would mean 5 additional bonus points for him to start the round of 12. That's big because the lump sum of bonus points that he got to kick off this postseason with all those regular season wins do not carry over. So he will be in a very similar situation to a Freenosh, to where any mistake in that next round would instantly put you down towards the red. So there is still plenty for Phillip to fight for, but pace right now still favoring Peter Irons. His last lap, a 1:11.782. It was a 1:12.013 for Agnell Phillip. Again, there's a slight tire advantage, but I think it is really a non-discriminate tire advantage. This is just pace. We saw Irons was better than Agnell on the long run when we closed in on halfway before the pit cycle, and we're seeing it again here as this time by. He's going to take 4 laps to go.
And as we see this gap grow of these two drivers and these two machines, it makes me think that Peter Irons is probably faster all along than Agnell Phillip. But just one of the challenges of this course, where there not being many passing opportunities, is you can be faster than someone but never really have a chance to show it off, to never have a chance to make it happen. It's because, as you said, there's turn 1, maybe turn 6, maybe the carousel if you're lucky, but that's about it. The rest of this course, you have to ride and be patient. But now I think we're beginning to see that somehow Peter Irons is just faster than Agnell Phillip at this track.
And you look back to what has happened at the other road course races so far this season. You head to Sonoma. That was a Matt Danson race win. I don't think that one kind of shocks anybody, and that's the only bit of reference we have to go on. Of course, we know that Danson unable to make a start in both the first and now second rounds of this round of 16 means that his playoff is likely going to come to an end. But in that race win for Danson, who was second? Cody Harris. Then it was Phillip in third spot, and even further on down the running order were others. Irons had yet to even enter the series at that point. So I will say maybe surprised that it is, air quotes, only a P6 running order right now for Cody Harris after how impressive he was in that Sonoma race, where he actually led more laps than the eventual race winner, Matt Danson.
Well, and luckily for Cody Harris, with his road course skills, he is back up to P6. I think that's worth saying. Remember, he had that incident just after the restart on the exit of the bus stop, and so to have those kind of gains, yeah, I mean, that may be as far as he gets. I don't know if he'll catch Bradley Burke in time, but, and probably, I don't want to say he won't. I mean, Cody Harris is pretty awesome at this, so we'll wait and see. But that's a great recovery drive for Cody Harris. But on board now, Steve Soa trying to run down Manatsi Major. This is a battle on track back. This is for 12th and 13th. And they are going now through turn 1. And Soa is quickly, it looks like, maybe gaining on Manatsi Major.
And these two have been referenced as some of the guys who really could have benefited from some of the other troubles. Soa and Major, not likely cars that are going to be able to just race their way to Phoenix by kicking everybody's butt with Agnell Phillip-esque speed, right? The path for these guys to get deeper into these playoffs is avoiding chaos, staying out of trouble, getting a decent amount of points here at the Glen, staying clean at Bristol, Talladega, a huge opportunity for them in the round of 12 to get some points and get to the round of 8. These two are going to need to be very strategic when it comes to trying to get deeper into these playoffs. Remember, Soa got held up behind Minotzi Major when Coop and Gas passed the both of them. The 75 has been hounding this 82 car on the bumper. Does he make a dive to the bottom? 2 laps to go this time by.
Yeah, you would think if you're Soa, you know, you have to use that bumper maybe to get around Minotzi Major, unless you're going to dive it here into 1. He is kind of setting up the drafting run, but does not pull out a line here, so he will not. Oh, wow. Soa got wiggled there coming down the hill. I don't know if he got on the brakes too soon or got spooked, but that back into that car was whipping around.
Yeah, the 75 is pushing, and the question comes, is it worth making a mistake? There's nothing that Soa can lose. The next car behind them is Eric Papanow, who's 4 laps down. Soa, he can maybe afford to go for it and to make a mistake because he can't lose anything. The question is, how much is 1 extra point worth in trying to get to the next round? Could this 1 spot, could this 1 point be a difference maker? And as they come down towards the final couple of quarters and will eye the last lap of this race, Peter Irons is already halfway through his final trip around this 2.45 mile track. He'll clock in the end with the most laps led, took over the race lead just shy of the halfway point, pitted right on the money at the competition caution, and despite a few mistakes that set him back to second, was able to pass Agno Phillip back and run away with it. He's going to collect checkered flag number 4 on the season and punch his ticket into the round of 12. Peter Irons wins at the Glen and is moving on in the RSR playoffs.
Wow, what a great run by Peter Irons. Just walked away at the end of this race. Over 2 seconds will be the gap here between himself and Agno Phillip. So a few drivers still coming across the line, Evan. Although the race has been decided, here is Bradley Burke and others. Look how Cody Harris, look how close Cody Harris was to making that pass.
And how about the Soa and Minotzi Major battle? Where do they stand? Look at the 6 car. This is George and Coop for 9th and 10th. The 53 trying to block Brandon Gas side by side of the stripe. Coop gets the benefit there as they fought for 10th. Here's the battle for P12. Does Soa go to the inside? He does. Major outbreaks though. And Minotzi Major will defend for P12. Soa will be scored 13th. Does that point hurt the 75 in the end? And while Irons pulled out to a 3-second cushion, there were several close battles all the way to the stripe.
Yeah, that was a blast watching that last lap. Lots of small battles and lots of points gained or lost that may matter in 1 week's time.
And now coming around to the start finish to celebrate, Peter Irons will get his first career road course win in the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series. He is moving on to the round of 12. And the 2 winningest drivers on the season are the first 2 drivers locked into the next round of the playoff. And right now, they are slated to start tied at 3,005 points. Man, is it going to be fun to watch this guy right here and the runner-up tonight, Agno Phillip, fight all the way to Phoenix here for this 2024 championship. Let's take a look at your full race results, your top 10 all playoff drivers. In the end, Irons, who starts 3rd, catapults to the race win, and Agno Phillip will settle for 2nd. Michael Araya ends up at a race high 3rd at the end. That's good for him. How about Ross Cato as well, up 4 spots with a P4 result? Now there's somebody you want to call action to. How about Sam Nieto, up 5 spots? He gets 8th. That's an impressive charge. But Cody Harris climbing all the way back to P6. That's impressive for the recovery after his accident.
Yep, that's a great run here. So you see as Karras, Matt Davis, Nieto, George, and Coop, your top 10. And then Brandon Gas, Minotzi Major, Steve Soa, all the cars on the lead lap, top 13. Eric Papanow and Andrew Freenoch, both 4 laps down. And then Cam Patterson and Mike Maddox round out your 17 car field.
It's a look top to bottom at your full race results. Let's grab tonight's race winner. He is back in RSR victory lane, and he is headed to the round of 12. Peter Irons, race winner at Watkins Glen tonight. Peter, congratulations.
Thank you. Let's go, dude. Come on. Finally back in victory lane. Man, this
Tell us about this one, man. You start third. You get a quick jump on the initial green flag around Cody Harris to get the second spot, and then it was you and Agnell back and forth. To the midway point, you get the yellow at the pit stop, you cycle back through as the leader, and then a couple of mistakes put you behind the 8 ball again, but you were able to, once more, track down one of the very best in this series.
Yeah. At the start, I heard you mention it. I was watching just a little bit of the start there while waiting to grid. Yeah, I called them bullies. Agnell and darn Cody beat me at the pole by 200s. Come on, 200s. Ugh, that's annoying. But yeah, we just stayed in it. Definitely was difficult to pass in this dirty air. The dirty air is so annoying trying to turn the car. When you got somebody in front of you, it doesn't want to turn at all. So we definitely made some aggressive moves to try to get around Cody at the start and then get around Agnell into turn 1, which Agnell got me back for, so that was kind of fair there. And then yeah, I had a chance to get him. There's a race between me and Agnell at that point after Cody spun, which unfortunately is pretty fast. It would be fun to race him to the end. When it was just me and Agnell, I was just waiting for opportunity, because either I dive it in turn 1 miles back, or Agnell makes a mistake and I take advantage. And with the lap car of Eric, I know Eric felt bad about it. It's unfortunate that happened, but with lap car of Eric there and Agnell having to go high around him, I just gunned it through the middle 3 wide, screaming like I was hoping I didn't get wrecked. To me, that was I don't know how close it was on the TV screen, but man, that felt pretty crazy to me. I was thinking like I was Dan Campbell calling a 4th down play, ready to go for it. It was a fun one.
Well, we know that you'll continue to go forward as you move into the round of 12, but we kind of asked aloud too, right? We didn't think that Agnell Phillip was going to roll over tonight because he didn't get that. He won't be able to carry his big playoff bonus points that he got into this round into the next one. So there was still an incentive for him to be competitive tonight and try to go for race wins. I assume the story will be the same for you as we head to Bristol next week.
Yep, if I can race it, I'll be there. You know, Bristol's a fun one. Could use the 5 extra points. And yeah, hopefully I can put it to Agnell and Cody once again.
We look forward to watching another installment of the battles that you guys have been having as of late, and are excited to see how it carries into the rest of the playoffs. As always, Peter, though, sponsors, shout outs, all those folks who makes it happen for you.
Well, I appreciate you guys. It's unfortunate that you guys are shutting down after this year. I know the participation's been kind of low, unfortunately, and Kevin's been kind of telling me that it's too low for them to run again. I'm like, no, but I wanted to run again because I'm having a lot of fun here with Agnell and Cody and with the series you guys put on. I also am pretty appreciative of my parents and my brothers and my grandma. Even my grandma's watching, which is really fun. I get talked about the race with her every Monday, or no, not every Monday, every weekend. That's when I get to go home. But yeah, I appreciate them. I appreciate David helping me set up this whole rig in my dorm room. That was a bit of a challenge, but we got it working out. And yeah, I also, one more last thing I want to mention, Team Conti. I just partnered with them for this next season, so pretty excited about that. Gonna be running a lot of B Open, so look for that on Twitter. I'll be probably posting a lot of victories if I get some.
We're excited to see what the rest of this RSR season has in store for you, as well as things with you on the Team Conti side. But Peter, we appreciate you being here. Congratulations on the win, and we'll catch you next time. Congrats on moving on.
Thank you.
It's your race winner tonight from Watkins Glen International. It is another win for Peter Irons, and he's pumped up. He's moving on one step closer to an RSR championship for the rookie. Agnell Phillip was in the conversation all night long tonight. He is one spot shy of back-to-back race wins. Derek's with him.
Well, Agnell, at one point you led this lap and you led this race in almost, to almost an extent of dominating fashion, but Peter got around you both times in both, I guess you call segments of this race. Was he just faster? Was it an issue of lap traffic being in the way, or what do you think led to that?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely had a lot of pace, especially long run. I think this is the most tire or most fall off I've seen in these things in a while. So definitely didn't have that quite together. I think on the first run, he would have probably gotten by me either way. On the first run, I thought, kind of eased me up a little bit into one to get the lead. Wasn't super thrilled about that. But then was able to get the lead back. I wasn't trying to dive bomb him, but I locked up and decided to, instead of running into the back of him and spinning him out, it was going to be better for both of us if I tried to just make the corner and, kind of figured after that one we were probably even. But yeah, then the lap traffic kind of put the final nail in the coffin. They just caught Eric at a really awkward time. But, I think the result was going to be what it was going to be. I think just didn't have the long run pace that Peter or Cody had. Frankly, it's kind of a bummer to see Cody get caught up in that wreck. So, yeah, I mean, here's what it is. Props to Peter. He was super fast.
So Evan and I had a talk during the broadcast about how, teams matter, but maybe not to the extent they do in a road course series. But obviously you and Cody Harris are working together, and Cody had that unfortunate moment out of the bus stop tonight. So when that happens, obviously you guys are sharing a voice chat. I'm just going to ask you, who's the more calm one between the two of you? And is it hard to keep Cody calm when a moment like that happens?
We're both pretty calm people. I mean, I try not to get riled up, but even with that being said, Cody is by far much more calm than I am. He was definitely not happy when it happened, and it was a bummer. It seemed like kind of a weird freak deal. This next gen car, just to hit the bumps wrong, it just sends you around. I think there's a little bit of contact with Peter too. It was just a bad deal for him. So he was definitely not happy about it. I think he thought he had a shot. Especially with the way that the end of the first, I don't know, what do you call it, a stage? The end of the first part of this race, he felt like he was running him down and had a shot on the long run. So, he's definitely bummed, but looking at the finishing order, he was able to recover okay. But yeah, I mean, it's never fun when that sort of stuff happens to either of us. But, we're both... I would say neither of us are particularly hot-headed, at least compared to some of the people that I've interacted with on iRacing. So I think, we both handled it all right. Handle those situations okay.
Well, next week is Bristol. If you want to talk about hot-headed people, I think that's where we find most of them, both in iRacing and in NASCAR in general. You already have your win. You're in next week, or you're in next round, pardon me, I should say. But is it still just, all out next week for Bristol?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be good to get another 5 points cushion. The next round is probably, it's one of the ones that I'm probably most worried about in terms of points, just because you've got Talladega and the Roval in the same round. So it would be good to build up a little bit more of a cushion. But the same usual suspects are all going to be pretty fast. That track is I feel like every time we go there, it drives like a little bit differently. And I haven't been actually all that good there the last couple of times we've gone there in the next gen car. So, we'll see. Try to work on that. Try to kind of save whatever tire it is that we need to save, and try to have the long run pace, because especially with the small fields we've been having, I know that race is going to go green for a good bit, maybe for the whole thing. So definitely want to have the long run pace, which is being good at that is transferable in any of the tracks that we go to. So we'll just keep doing what we're doing.
All right, well, good luck next week, and good job tonight. Anyone you want to give a shout out to or thank for helping you out?
Gotta shout out the guys over at 851 Pro, Lockdown Racing. We've got race at Rockingham and the Road to Pro Series coming up this Thursday. Gotta thank my family and my partner for their support. Thanks to you all for broadcasting and put this on. It's always fun.
All right, well, listen, great run tonight at the Glen P2. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, appreciate it.
All right, that is Agnew Phillip. Evan finished P2 in that number 94 machine. And now I believe we have caught up with Michael Laraya. Well, Michael, great job tonight in P3, navigating that red and blue 44 machine around the track. Some very scary moments, a couple of bits of contact. And what was your vantage point on any of them, if you saw any of it?
Oh, yeah, I was right in the thick of it there. I knew going through the S's, we were basically just in a conga line, and there was no room between probably 8th place up to 4th there, and I knew something had to give if somebody misjudged it a little bit over the coming laps with the braking point. I mean, it was going to be pretty nasty, and it just so happened, you know, somebody made a mistake there in the bus stop, and trying to save it, and we just a log jam formed, and everybody was piling into each other. And for me, I was far enough back to see it happen, getting into the bus stop, where I was naturally slowing down to get through there. And so by the time I really saw things happen, I was slowed down enough where I could actually react. And luckily, it was like the seas kind of parted. I was able to just shoot the middle, entering the carousel there, and make my way through. But the whole track could have been totally blocked, and I was going to just drive right into that mess. So, you know, looking back on it, I got very lucky. And I'm very happy to come away with a podium finish tonight.
Awesome. Well, I can say right now, you may not know this yet, but you are now 31 points ahead of the cut line going into Bristol. Having that data in your head, does that change your approach to Bristol? Do you still just want to go out and win and lock yourself in? Are you able to be more conservative knowing you have that 31-point gap? Or what's your feelings about next week at Bristol?
Yeah, I think with that track, it's definitely one of my better tracks that we go to on iRacing. So for myself, I expect to be around the top 5 for sure. I think more from a standpoint of just kind of mentally preparing myself for the next round and just trying to get a little bit more competitive here. I want to make sure that I stay near the front and be a little bit more aggressive, you know, maybe just hustling the car and trying to go for a win. But certainly with that buffer, I don't need to, you know, really push things. I don't need to drive over my head, so to speak. I want to, you know, be aggressive but be calculated with it. So, you know, that's kind of my approach going into Bristol. Just run a very solid race. If I have the pace, certainly go for the win. But if not, don't make any mistakes and just see where their chips may fall. A top 10 is going to do it.
All right. Well, listen, well, good luck on the top 10 and making it happen next week. Congrats on the P3 tonight. Is there anyone you want to thank or give shout outs to?
I got to give a shout out to Sim Speed Shop for being on the car this season. Also going to give a shout out to my flat out teammates, Bradley Burke and Sam Nieto. And of course, got to give a shout out to yourself, Derek, as well as Evan for putting on the broadcast each week. And looking forward to hopefully advancing myself into the next round here.
All right. Well, listen, well, great job tonight at the Glen, and we'll see you in 1 week's time at Bristol.
All right. Thank you.
All right, that is Michael O'Reilly finishing P3. Evan, hey, listen, for once I got shouted out first. That's new around here.
There you go. First time for all of it. You get some love as well. That'll be it for our post-race interviews. Big thanks, as always, Peter Irons, Agnew, Philip, Michael Araya, for giving us some time post-race to chat. And we were talking about cut lines. Let's discuss it and take a look at where things stand after tonight's race in the results. So, of course, Agnew, Philip, Peter Irons, they are both through. Your eyes immediately go to the cut line. And I think Papanow in 10th, probably relatively safe. The further up you get, the better off. But I'm looking at Austin Coop at 2055. He's 9 points to the good. Gas is 3 to the good. And that means that Steve Soa drops from 11th to 13th. He will be 3 points out. Remember, didn't get that late race pass, so Minotzi Major. Will that single point hurt him? Davis was able to start tonight, but again, he's been digging out of a hole. He does not have a stellar showing, despite a good bit of bonus points and a top 10 result. But after missing in Atlanta, he's still basically in a must-win situation. Danson, the same story, because he is yet to start a race. But Andrew Freenosh, 9 to the cut, is going to be an incredible story to watch.
Yeah, that's maybe the one that stood out for me when this graphic first came out is, what can Freenosh do with that 9-point gap? And listen, does a winner below that line just make all this even more weird in 1 week's time? You never know what may happen. It's Bristol. Big wrecks happen, and they happen quick. Even though it seems like an Eric Papanow or an Austin Coop may be safe, it's one bad accordion wreck at Bristol away from not being safe.
That's all it takes. And to your point, if a Soa, Freenosh, a Davis, or a Danson win, then it would shuffle everybody else down as we head to the world's fastest half mile next week for the cutoff race and the end of the round of 16. You are not going to want to miss that one. But until then, that is it for us here tonight from the Glen. On behalf of our entire team at RealSimRacing, RaceSpotTV, and our broadcast crew tonight. For our producer, Hugo Luis downstairs, for Derek Watson and myself, Evan Pasoko, I want to say thanks for tuning in and joining us. We hope you join us when we're back in 1 week's time, Monday, September 16th at iRacing's virtual Bristol Motor Speedway. That race and every race of the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series playoffs can be found exclusively here on RaceSpotTV. Till next time, good night from the Glen, where Peter Irons is locked in to the championship round of 12.